felt like doing this in Chicago just added texture to the movie. If I was to shoot this in LA, it would have been kind of reminiscent of Die Hard. And if I was to shoot this in New York, you know, it would have its similarities to Dog Day Afternoon, which is not a bad thing, but, you know, I think Chicago is the perfect kind of middle ground. I mean, literally.
Just as New York is you know, very specific to what it contributes to a film, I think Chicago has a sameness to it in terms of just the people there, again, the skyline, and then some of the older architecture there.
It's texture that you can't buy, you can't fake it, you can't build it. There's no backlot that you can dress up and wet down that's gonna give you the texture and the history that Chicago has. And so much so that it and this may sound weird, but it helped me in casting, you know, and dealing with the Chicago police force. You know, you have the guy next door, your brother, your uncle, you know, you have different types of people, you know, a short guy, fat guy, you know, and I think it's more interesting for me as a director to be able to have a wider palette to paint. There wasn't set in stone, you know, it was written kind of like, here's a building, and it's a city building. It wasn't described as a big, tall, kind of beautiful building or anything like that. It was, here's a building, and across the street is Command Center. And I told Holger, I said, I want you to find the most interesting way to play the Chicago River.
Which of course made big sense to me because it is downtown Chicago. Chicago, you know, the river, skyscrapers, the L train.
Holger was perfect for this because he shared the same vision. You know, we didn't want to make it in this dull, dreary kind of city building.
I found the building, the Donnelly building in 77 Wacker. It had something that no other building had, a very modern, government building looking feeling to it, even so it was totally contrast to what I think everybody was looking for and read in the script, down, dirty, cheap kind of an office building. That was a big contrast, and I was a little concerned that I might run against the wall somehow. The idea that actually was born in LA, actually as a joke, talking to David Nixie, I said, if he wants to play the river, why don't we put a nice barge on the river? Using construction barge just was different. It was a mixture of high tech and low tech. You know, I mean, you would expect, you know, the cops to go in and shut down a convenience store or shut down a Starbucks. It was the atmosphere, the texture of the second big set throughout the whole movie. We actually had to ship it, you know, literally drag it through the Lake Michigan, down the river and close off everything to get it there. I wanted to have a very stark contrast. Texture, basically all kinds of construction equipment and ropes and hoses and everything possible and rivets, whatever we could find to fill up a space, a tiny space that will give a different meaning to the whole tense situation, being on the phone talking to a hostage taker. There was a great contrast. You have all these monitors and cameras and all these little, you know, remote systems in the midst of extension cords and chainsaws and skill saws and things like that. So you saw how they instantly turned something so simple into a modern command center. I went to the hotel at night, and on the back little notepads of the Four Seasons hotels, while I was waiting, I scribbled down a scenario around the river, our building, and what I would do. And this is the one I showed to Gary. It added an extra element of how does a police force handle a hostage situation off of the river. I invited him to come after we looked around during the day, also at night, because most of our movie, of course, plays also at night, and I wanted to see the light situations and so on. So we met again after dinner and we went out to the river, across the river, perspective, low angle, 2-hour building from the construction barge, playing the bridge, which was right next to the building. All I needed to do was see 77 Wacker at nighttime. You look up the tall building and you see how beautiful it is,
and it just stands out. I mean, if you look at just all the buildings that are off the river, 77 Wacker just stands out, and that's what I wanted it to do.
The process was to now talk to New Regency, to David Overman, to all people involved, and try to convince them of the scenario. It is not what the script was written for, but I really could sense now that Gary, in his mind, had worked out a scenario that would make it work.
Well, I thought we were going to have a little fight with production and with the studio, because it was an expensive proposition, and again, the script read kind of, you know, city building, nothing really special, and you know, I really wanted to make it special, and Holger was there to fight with me in the background going, there's no other way to do it, there's no other way to do it.
When they came back with the Wacker pictures and the river in juxtaposition and the barge and so forth, it became a whole new deal.
I remember, you know, sitting down and having a few strategy meetings with my DP and with my production designer, Holger, on how we were going to go back and ask and convince the studio that there was no other choice but 77 Wacker and shooting off the river.
That we sat in a conference room at New Regency, and they showed us what they wanted to do. Gary and Russell and Holger were all committed to it and thought that was the way to go. And I remember protecting my ass in that room saying, I just want everybody to be aware this will have a cost impact. If you're ready to go ahead and do it, then it's a great thing to do for the film. David Madelon said, let's go.
They understood that I wasn't there really to take advantage of the situation. I just really wanted to make the most of this movie in every area, from casting to locations, and shooting off the river and shooting in Chicago just added that much more, you know, and they understood it and they listened and they went for it. It automatically kind of redefined a lot of things within the script, because now all of a sudden you need more officers. We have to employ, you know, a third of the Chicago police to come just to lock down the river and to lock down 9 city blocks, because that's exactly what they would do in a situation like that.
The chief hostage negotiator is taking hostages himself in the IAB office. It's not just a normal hostage situation. All hell will break loose. So a contrast for the very tight interior scenes and dialogues between the two main actors needed a scope that would actually show on the outside world why this one is such a big event.
Well, there was always breaches in the script, you know. I just think that in picking the location, it made it more interesting, because, you know, now you have 50 floors. That's a whole nother ball game when you're dealing with rappelling down 30 stories to infiltrate this hostage situation.
And the idea came up after we settled on the building, the barge, and Gary's brain was ticking and said, let's do a little more. Production really loved us a lot because their work got heavier and heavier and heavier.
Russell Carpenter really had his work cut out for him.
Russell came aboard because he thought he was making a small little movie, and this was an opportunity for him to do that after Titanic. And I know one night in Chicago when he lit up, I think, 20 square blocks, he said it was the biggest lighting setup that he had ever done.
It was really, really interesting because, you know, people say, oh, it was a helicopter shot, but to light the river and to light this canyon of buildings, we flew in lights from other states. I mean, we used most all the lights in Chicago, and we had to fly in lights and ship lights from other cities to do that one shot.
In a way, we had to set siege to the city of Chicago. So we marshaled our troops and like a military exercise, really, came in and invaded 9 square blocks of downtown North Loop area of the city of Chicago.
It was kind of a a disadvantage at a certain point because we had to spend a good part of my shooting time just locking down a good chunk of this river.
We had a great amount of cooperation, not only from the business owners and the local residents there, but from the city of Chicago. But it became a logistical battle, really. And the battle was engaged every evening at 7 p.m. when we shut down the streets. And the battle was disengaged the next morning at 6 a.m. when we ceded the battleground back to the citizens of Chicago for a few hours until we came back the next night.
We had a great production team now. You know, producer David Nixay and everyone and his support team made it easy for me. We actually had a pact. He said, when you finish the film, I'll tell you exactly what I went through in order to give you all this stuff.
Here on stage, what we've done is take a little corner of a 50-story skyscraper from the banks of the Chicago River and replicate it. We've taken a small slice out of the edge of the pie, 3 stories tall and half a block wide on either side, so that we could recreate this portion of the 19th, 20th, and 21st floors of 77 West Wacker Drive.
And it was extremely important to do that because there's a scene where Sam Jackson is kind of standing outside the window in a Christ-like pose, and we had to get close-ups. And, you know, he's on the 20th floor, 30th floor of this building. There's no way you're going to get a camera up there, you know, long lens, and get focused and get a good shot of him doing that. So in order for us to get a shot that represented a low angle and a low point of view from the crowd and from the cops' point of view and things like that, we had to get under him. So we had to build the set. We had to elevate the set.
You have to make a set so workable, not just for the look, but also for lighting, for camera, for action, for just name it.
I love to shoot with long lenses. So to build that set gave me the opportunity to remove the walls and to put a camera on the outside of the office and to put a camera on the outside of the building, actually, to get different angles.
We had tactical police officers rappelling from the 32nd floor down to the 20th floor and swinging in the windows when they're making a tactical approach on assaults, trying to rescue the hostages. Here on stage, we'll be able to amplify that work by shooting more shots with those rappellers on the outside of this building here.
We really had to recognize that at the end of all of this, it's going to have to come down, and we're going to have to burn it, and we're going to have to mix the elements of fire and water and smoke, which, you know, short of rebuilding a good section of that building, we couldn't do it in Chicago. Shooting on the set posed a huge challenge because the office is made up of all windows. So as soon as you look out from any direction, you would see the city of Chicago. We had to create this huge translight. It's really interesting how they did it.
We went to Chicago, took the glass out on the 20th floor, and with special cameras set up, 6 or 5 of them, shooting basically the entire skyline, the point of view from the office in 2 different directions, and created here in LA these translight backdrops. They're backlit, 160 feet long, 40 feet tall. It went from the stage floor all the way up to the perms, so that we would be able to look out the windows in 2 different directions.
You know, there were times where we were on the set and we just felt like we were in Chicago, and we'd walk right out and we'd see Melrose and like, oh yeah, we're in LA. I wanted the locations to define and accentuate the moments in the film.
I think all our efforts, part of the art department work, F. Gary's work, Russell Carpenter, the cameraman, I think we created a interesting Chicago look. So the look was a very subdued, I believe, good Chicago look, and this is what it was meant to be.
I wanted the audience to really get a sense and to feel the different shifts in the movie, and I think that the locations help shift different gears emotionally in the movie.
Gary's images of those areas were very striking and very much a part of the movie. So I think they, since there were few of them, they were chosen carefully, and I think made a great contribution to the film.
The hostage situation at the beginning in Omar's apartment, that dirty look, was one atmosphere. It was in sharp contrast to a pretty sterile modern building like the office in the IAB, and different look, also richly textured in knee bombs at the end, and to construction barge. So the design, the look of the movie was to set off these 4 or 5 main different textures against each other to support the story without interfering with the story.
One thing about this project that I really loved is that everyone had the passion to make it right. So in dealing with the building and dealing with, the trans life and dealing with investing so much time and energy and money and effort into making it right, I think that's the reason why it's seamless. The transitions from Chicago to Los Angeles, you just feel like all along, hey, I'm in Chicago and we're just gonna take this ride.